Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you are watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. First hour is general discussion, any questions you may have about media, virtual production. Second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. We stop broadcasting on Saturdays so that we can have our education hour, and so you have to be in Zoom to see that. Today we have education from 8 to 10. And then at noon, we're going back to Belfast for the Belfast method. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be great. You get to see behind the scenes of a concert or the concert itself. And you can see that concert at Accidental Theater. It's the channel on YouTube. And tomorrow, remember, we have general discussion for 2 hours. And then we're going to go cooking. We're going to make pierogies. So we're going to make some pierogies with Shannon Cooper. So that should be a lot of fun. It's her family recipe. I'm pretty excited about learning how to make them. So that's coming up. And before we get started, before Emily takes over for today, we're going to go ahead. Dennis has a little video to play. Go ahead, Dennis.
This year, the shortest Saturday of the year brings a long day with a difference.
Super Saturday!
The 18th of December will be a day of live broadcasts from Office Hours members around the world. The day starts at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with an hour of live Q&A from Office Hours, immediately followed by the Education Hour, available only on Zoom. Then, at 11 a.m., Shannon Cooper hosts the Office Hours Cooking Show, where she, Alex Lindsay, and Dennis Champion Walker cook along with Damianti Garja, who will be making Mexican rice. At midday, Todd Reynolds brings us a live concert from his studio in North Adams, Massachusetts. Then, at 1 p.m., we cross to the Accidental Theatre in Belfast for an hour of entertainment in the Belfast Method. And at 2 p.m., we bring you a special edition of Conversations with Tony Mobley, featuring Todd Reynolds, Hasmukh Gurjar, and Richard Lavery. And that's your Super Saturday lineup here on Office Hours.
Well, that looks super exciting.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Make sure you guys come and check it out. All right. Well, welcome everybody to Office Hours on Saturday. Emily Russo as your host, and we're going to just jump right into our questions. But before we do, a real quick reminder that if you do have a question, make sure you're putting it in Mukana, and you're also voting on those questions up or down so that we can you can control what we answer. All right, let's go ahead with the first question.
Thank you, Emily. This is John Pewitt from Huntersville, North Carolina, asking, I'm looking for a good way to make thumbnails for YouTube. Any recommendations to make them pop and eye-catching?
TJ.
The first recommendation I have is a lot of what you see is bright colors, and then to make sort of, bright backgrounds, and then contrast, make it visually pop within the thumbnail itself.
Peter?
Well, along with TJ's, to actually make them, I end up using one of the graphics programs out there, like Slides or something like that, so that I can capture the PNG and move it out there. Sometimes I've been known to grab a screenshot and then overlay it with high contrast text and things like that before I put it out there as the thumbnail.
Good points, Jeffrey.
Sorry, because I'm doing this. So I'm building a thumbnail right now. So basically what I do is I have all my text. I'm using Photoshop for doing that. So basically I'll have different images that I've pre-done. Like for instance, this is an unboxing image. And then I think, another unboxing image. But I have them all set up so I can go back and forth. So what I'll do is I'll take a bunch of pictures. I'll spend a few hours to take a few pictures of different reactions and things like that for YouTube. They kind of like that. And then what a lot of creators will do is they'll put a stroke around it, and so it kind of highlights you making a reaction, and then they'll have like a background thing depending on what they're doing. If they're talking about TV show or movie, then they'll have a frame of that TV show or movie in there. The most important thing with the thumbnail is if you put text into it, is to make sure that that text is readable at a very small box, because a lot of people end up putting all this fancy text in there, and then you look at the thumbnail and it means absolutely nothing. And then of course, always be very succinct into what your video is about. Don't go saying don't go reading off paragraphs of text in there. Just say, this is happening, and then people will click on it.
Alex?
One thing that I use in other areas, I don't make a lot of thumbnails yet, but I in areas that I want to show off a little bit. Remember that Motion, Apple's Motion, does 3D text, so you can really put a lot of detail into that 3D text, and it exports as TIFFs. so you can literally build this 3D text and 3D elements, and then render them out, and then put them over top of your stuff. I use them a lot in slides.
Back to Jeffrey.
I forgot, if you don't want to get Photoshop or GIMP or anything like that, online options are like a program called Canva, where you can do thumbnails fairly easy, and they give you some stock footage. You can upload some footage in there to use and create your thumbnails.
Yeah, Canva is an excellent tool. It has a really low user threshold. Like you can jump right in and start making stuff, and they have some really nice templates. All right, let's go to the next question.
Next question coming from John Pewitt in Huntersville. It didn't advance. Jack B in Phoenixville, Arizona. When folks are bringing their audio chain into Audio Hijack, what kind of processing are they doing it with? What is the goal? Extra gain? FX?
Tala?
So a big, huge thing is adding in some delay so that you can get audio-video sync. That is what, for example, Tony Mobley is using in order to get his voice coming into the Heil PR40 to line up with his video that is a little bit delayed coming out of the iPhone. You can also do some really amazing things with the audio coming into your ears. So you can do ducking if you're listening to a Zoom call, and then you also have comms, or you have some other sorts of audio coming in that can activate a duck out of the particular thing you're listening to, so that you can kind of focus on the right thing at the right time. You can do EQ and many other things, but those are some of the important ones in my life.
Michael?
Yes, I just use a little compression and a little EQ. Just wanted to add that in to great explanation. All
right, next question.
The next question comes to us from, I'm sorry, the thing is not advancing. Douglas Carmichael. I remember reading about a concert where a synthesist improvised ambient music live before the band went on stage. How is that created? Is it basically a pad playing, the chord progression, and improvising a lead line on top?
Michael?
Yeah, what they do is they're using sometimes guitarists are really well known for this, using a looper pedal. And you just click on the pedal, it records a little section of music, and then you hit it again, and it just loops that section over and over again. And then you can play a solo on top of that. So there's all kinds of loopers out there. There's even iPad apps that are loopers. And Billy Joel did a very famous one, I think with Fallon on TV. And it's a really popular thing, a looper.
Thank you. All right. Next question. Nuts.
Some guy named Mitchell Hills asking the question, is it possible to still obtain a wired USB Mac keyboard, the extended version?
Mark.
So yes, if you go to OWC, they still have, they have used refurbished keyboards like I think Mitchell's looking for.
Michael?
Yeah, I'm using, I don't know how to say the name, Matthias, MATIAS.ca in Canada. And they've been making wired keyboards and have all kinds of options for you. But I've been using those for years.
TJ.
Michael got it. Matthias.
Alex.
And I use a DOS keyboard, which is it's a bit clickety click. So you have to decide whether you want the clickety click or not. But it's a pretty nice keyboard. I use it. My daughter actually took it from me because it makes too much noise for me to have in meetings. I still have an old Mac one, but if you like the old keyboard feel, they make Mac versions, and it's got a little volume dial, which is quite nice to have on your keyboard.
And Mitchell.
Yeah, the Matthias, I got to keep an eye out for it. It also has the UK markings on it. So instead of dollars, you'll see European pounds or pound sterling.
Interesting. All right, let's go to the next question.
Next question from Greg Swick. of Irwin, Pennsylvania. I have an Elgato Streamdeck. I contacted Elgato before I purchased the second one. Support told me I could clone them to be exactly the same. I did that, but sometimes one of those buttons does not perform the way it should. Any ideas?
Jeffrey.
So I'm assuming that you're using the two Stream Decks on one computer, and sometimes that'll happen. The most important thing is to make sure that both Stream Decks are plugged into a USB port that supports USB 3.0 and not 2.0. I run that problem every now and then. If you are transferring it to another computer and using the Stream Deck on another computer and that button's not working, then you might want to check the programs that you've loaded up in there. And if anything, just remove the button, bring it back in, unless it's a random button. Then I'd go back to the first thing, make sure that you're plugged into a good port on your computer. And if you're plugged into like a docking station, change the port, change the plug, and plug it directly into the computer and see how that works.
Thanks, Jeffrey. All right, next question.
Dennis Champion Walker from Southend-on-Sea, Great Britain. I've discovered today that the dreaded orange dot indicating a microphone is active appears on macOS Monterey, even in full screen. Has anyone figured out how to make it go away yet?
I just noticed that the other day. Alex?
Can you describe what it? I haven't seen that. I don't know what
It's a little light orange dot in the top right corner of your screen, and it's there all the time. Like I took screenshots for my boss the other day, and
it's
like,
in Zoom?
No, it's on your Mac, and it's always, if you have an active microphone, it's always there.
It's interesting because I'm in Monterey.
The issue is that if I go full screen in VLC, for example, to play a video, as I was planning to do for today, the orange dot is there even when you're playing the video.
Yeah.
But I just don't, like, I don't see an orange dot. That's the thing I'm trying to figure out, is that I don't.
I'm looking for it now.
Yeah, I'm looking for it, and I don't see one. That's why I haven't seen it yet. I'm on Monterey, and
so if you look at my screen now, very top right of the screen, in the menu bar is an orange dot just to the right of the clock, and that stays there even when the menu bar goes away.
And what kind of mic are you using?
For this, I'm using M-Audio Nova plugged into a Zoom H6, but I don't think it matters what mic you're using. If there's a mic active, the dot is there indicating that your computer is listening to you.
So I see it. Here's the funny thing is, it's on my second screen.
Yeah, that was.
So I see it. It's just the reason I didn't see it is I had to look over at my edit thing, and I see this little dot on my second screen, but I don't see it on my main screen.
Right. So on your main screen, it may have moved to next to the control panel.
It's just not on my main screen. It's over.
Yeah.
It's on my second screen. So if you have a second screen up, it goes over to the second screen. So it's like way out of the way from my perspective. But yeah,
I'm seeing it on second and third screen.
Yeah, but I don't see it on the first screen. Like it's I definitely don't have that on this screen, but the fact that it's on that screen is problematic. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. It's got to be a way to turn it off. It's a obviously it's a security issue. Like that's what it's there for, is so that your mic is active, or your mic is on. And if you turn your mic off, does it know? Is that what happens if I mute?
I believe so.
Seems like
No, I think the interface is still active. Certainly, if I mute in Zoom, the interface is still active and it remains there.
You have to disconnect the mic.
Yeah, disconnect the mic and it goes away.
We'll have to do some more research on that. That's really, I get why they did it. Still a dumb idea.
Yes, because it means that if you're feeding a screen to an ATEM like I am, that orange dot is always there and you can't get rid of it.
My guess is something like Dante would defeat that. I don't know for sure, but I bet you that Apple's not thinking about Dante Virtual Sound Card. I'm saying we should figure out how to turn off that dot. Like that's the real solution. But I bet you right now, if you had something with Dante on either end, you'd be able to. For people who are in production, needed to get it done, that'd be one way to do it. But we got to find a way to get rid of that orange dot. Yeah. Okay. It's good. It's a good call out.
All right. Next question.
Panelist Michael Drosty from Peoria, Illinois asks, Alex, are speakers being mounted to that MakerPipe post for surround sound?
Alex.
They sure are. So I'm putting in JBL 305s. They're a little big. It's the thing that my little desk that I'm building. I'll have more of a design for you guys to see on Monday. It's a beast. Like, it's got a 514 system built into the desk. So, and the speakers are not, the 305s are not insignificant. So it is it'll be a thing.
Those posts can't hold that kind of weight.
They absolutely
What kind
can.
of posts are you using?
The EMT will absolutely hold that weight in a vertical.
Really?
In a vertical
Okay.
mounting. Absolutely. Again, I think I said this yesterday. I put 240 pounds on balsa wood. You know, it's not the material that keeps things strong. It's the structure. You know, like, it doesn't, how you build the EMT is important. Like, where you just have to think about vectors. So you think about weight vectors, and if you just think in weight vectors, you can put almost anything on anything. If you think through it, you just need triangles. Triangles and squares, and you need to know where that weight is going. But we talked about it at MakerPipe with David yesterday. David's the founder of MakerPipe. That pushing down on one of those pieces, he said, is tested at 800 pounds. It starts to slip at 800 pounds. The speakers are not 800 pounds. So if you're absolutely right that I can't have the speakers go way out, I can't create a lever, with those. I can't, there's a lot of things that you can't do with the speakers, but the speakers are only 20 pounds or 15 or 20 pounds. And so putting those out, attaching them relatively closely to a vertical piece. The biggest problem I have with the speakers is there's no mounting bracket. So what I'm trying to figure out is how to build the mounting bracket for the speakers just to hold them, because I was going to build that out of metal. The problem I have with metal is they'll vibrate if I put a lot of power, a lot of SPL through them. So if I push a lot of volume through them, they're going to vibrate, and then the whole thing's going to vibrate. And so I'm more worried about vibration and hearing things rattle than I am worried about whether the speakers will be able to be held. So I'm trying to figure out the mounting process for the speakers, and that's the big challenge for me that I have to figure out this month is how to do it without drilling into them. All the mounts that I've seen that look reasonably good, literally like, well, just drill into the speaker. that does not work for me. So anyway, so that's what we're kind of working through.
All right, next question.
Mark Giuliani from Alexandria, Virginia asked the question, I'm trying to run a 2 gigabyte Keynote infinite loop presentation. The computer is a Mac Mini M1, 256 gigabyte storage, 8 gigabyte of memory. It crashes with an out of memory error after 3 or 4 hours. Memory leak?
Roscoe?
Yeah, probably most likely, but I would probably export it as a QuickTime movie and then just play that back.
Alex?
What Roscoe said. Just play a looping movie if you're having an issue with it.
And Peter? Peter?
Oh, I think we lost Peter.
There have been known reported problems with Monterey and memory leaks that they're slowly trying to fix. So I would go back to Alex's comment, which in Roscoe's comment, just play it as a movie and be done with it. But Monterey does suffer from memory leaks. I do have that problem right now.
Thanks.
All right, next question.
Douglas Carmichael asked the question, could you use MakerPipe and EMT to build pipe and drape?
Flat.
Yes, referring back to Alex's answer on the previous question in terms of what the structure is. The problem with using drapes, though, is that you get to a leverage problem right away because you've got air movement and they're essentially big sails. So you want to really think about how the base is and whether or not it'll fall over. So my guess is you should get pipe and drape pipes rather than this for pipe and drape.
All right, next question.
Jerry Hoyle from Matthews, wherever that is, I'm not sure where, especially enjoy Philosophical Sundays, but I am not always available. What's the best and or easiest way to record locally with an M1 Mini?
Alex?
What I will say is that I recommend you don't do that. So our goal is, I know that some people do it. We'd really prefer people not to. You just kind of have to be there. We're not going to tell you the best way to do it because we really prefer you not to do it, because it's really just a time for us to kind of trade notes. I know that we are in a world where we feel like everything has to be recorded, but it doesn't all have to be recorded. And so I think that, and I think that the challenge really for us is that, that this is the problem. What you're bringing up right now is probably the biggest problem with video conferencing, is that you can't just have a meeting where no one's recording. Like you can't have just a private meeting to talk through things in that you are relatively certain that no one's recording. And so that becomes a hard thing. So yeah, that's what I'll say. Next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Next question.
Next question coming from JJ McKenna in San Rafael, California. Is there a list of compatible cameras that are color controllable within the Blackmagic Design ATEM Mini?
Costco.
That I know of a definitive list, but it's pretty much just the pockets. And then with the bidirectional converters, you can get into the URSAs.
All right. Next question.
Eduardo de Augustine from Panama asked the question, it seems clients believe live streaming is just getting a camera or cell phone video to a platform and don't see the production value. Question, how to land serious clients with a small live production company?
Alex.
I think that what we try to do is over deliver wherever we get an opportunity to it. I think that there was something that we were talking about earlier, is when someone gets something that's way better than what they thought was possible, going back is hard. Like going back to so a lot of times what we've done is we really push into, let's push the quality way up. And we try to put a lot of extra value into what we're doing. And then what happens is that you get used to giving. What we figured out how to do a lot is how to give the client way more without it costing a lot more on our end. So we still make the money we need to make on it, but how do we add all these extra little bits and pieces that they didn't pay for? And there's a term kind of surprise and delight. Like, how do you just add little things they didn't expect, and you just keep on adding those things in? Now, what happens is they go to somebody else who doesn't know. If a client leaves you, they're not going to come back generally. I mean, some clients have no taste, so they will do this. But most clients that have some level of taste are not going to ask you to train your replacement. They're just going to go to a new company that doesn't know anything about what you were doing inside of that and all the little things you were adding. So what we have found is that if you add enough little extra value into the system, when the client goes to somebody else because you're too expensive or you're whatever it is, the drop in quality is so high that they usually come back and they're so much nicer after that. so the thing is that because they realize that was, so you kind of want to figure out how you can make it better. And a lot of things that make things better for a live stream are not better cameras or more things like that. That helps. So having a good camera, sometimes you're going to have to spend into it a little bit to get there, but to, really make sure how the show's going to start, how it's going to end, where you're going to put graphics, how are you going to, making sure that you do all the, what we call good ball handling, no matter what sport it is, everything's about ball handling, so how do you handle that? How do you do the basic things really, really well? And then how do you add little, gleans of other things that make it just special? And then you just keep on trying to add those things. And you don't try to add, the mistake that people make when you have a little company is trying to add all of them at one time. So look at what you can do, but also always keep your elbows in. When I say keeping your elbows in, I used to wrestle. And if you get your elbows out, you're going to get thrown. So we talk about keeping your elbows in because when you have a tendency, people want to do something really great and they want to do this thing that they can see as possible, but they don't have the equipment or the resources or the time to do it well. And that's when you get thrown, so what you want to do is, what can I do with my elbows in, and add all these little bits and pieces in and keep on looking at where it is. So I'm going to keep my elbows here, but I'm going to keep on adding things that I can, that are doable, that I have time for. And then the other thing that you have to do is you do have to ask the hard questions before the day of the show. So you don't want to go overboard. You have to feel out your client to know when you're just becoming overwhelming of asking too many questions or requiring too many things. I've been known for requiring many things, But the key is the more you can get done before you get to an event, before you get to the live stream, like where's your internet? Can we test the internet? Do we know how to load in? Do we know where the power is coming from? Is there a backup? How's, where's what is my backup in and out? In some cases, what are the security, egress, all these things? You're trying to figure out all of these things before you get to the event. The goal is the event becomes very smooth, because here's the trick. Clients are only going to remember the days of the event. Like you'll ask all these other questions and push all this other stuff weeks before, but the client's just going to remember, oh, it was very smooth during the event, and then we ended, and then everybody left. And so if you have, by the way, if you have a 3-day event and the first day goes bad, all that matters is that the third day goes really well. So the client will walk away and go, this was great. And so, but those are the kind of things that you want to do, and it's an iterative process. I mean, it took us years, like, as Pixel Core, it took us years to grow from laptops with digitizing video, to get to a point where I had a broadcast truck, or I had a, big kit or whatever. It wasn't something that we did in 2 months. And I'm really glad we didn't do it in 2 months, because we didn't know how to do it in 2 months. Like we kept on learning from all these other groups that were there. So those are some of the things to think about.
Jeffrey?
The other key is to make, I don't know how to follow that too much, but the other thing is to make a portfolio, and just continually doing videos and things that, even if it's something that you're not getting paid for, it's learning the craft. It's understanding what's going on in the community and talking to the community to see what they want. Because I'll tell you one thing, there is one client I have that doesn't want to go past 720p on their videos, and there's a specific reason why. They want it to be down and dirty type videos, so they don't want to have high production on those videos. So there's some times where the client actually does want that type of video. So you just have to make sure that you understand the client's needs.
Alex?
The one last thing I'll say is that stay busy and find places where you can experiment. So I have been doing some version of pro bono work for years. I mean, when I say almost my whole life, if I wanted to get into something, I didn't charge people when I got in. Like when I was trying to figure something out, I'm like, oh, okay, we're not gonna, it's always turned out over time. Don't do it with the clients that you may want to charge, but find nonprofits, find people just trying to get stuff done. We would volunteer, all the time. And you see us doing this here when we talk about office hours itself. When you look at the Tony Mobley show, when you look at the Belfast project, when you look at all these things, we are not charging for it because we don't know how to do it yet. But we're given the freedom, because of that, we're given the freedom to experiment and to build capacity and to do things that allow us to create entirely new pipelines. And the thing is that what we're building right now could potentially, for many people inside of office hours, turn into a solid living, doing this. But we would never get there if we were trying to find a client to pay what that would cost, to do. Like we calculated the with the number of people involved and the hardware involved and everything else that was done, the Mad in the Kitchen, we as a company, we would have charged about somewhere between $30,000 and $35,000 a unit. Like that's, and no one was going to pay that. And they weren't ready to. Madeline was not ready to pay that, because even if she was still figuring those things out. Now it was worth it for us to do, because we were learning all those things and figuring things out. But that's, you need to find places that you can play.
Roscoe?
Find the busiest person in your area, go work with them, and sometimes they'll hand you off the clients that they don't have time to work with. You'll learn a lot of tricks about what's in the local area as far as what type of companies. I happen to be in a county that has a lot of biomedical. So if you learn a little bit about biomedical, there are lots of opportunities to do productions in that particular area.
Absolutely. All right, next question.
Stefan Lindholm in Abo, Finland, asks a question. Loopback is a fantastic piece of software in the Mac. Would it be possible to use an Elgato Streamdeck to change between different preset routings?
Roscoe?
There's no key clicks in Loopback that enable this, so you'll be doing a mouse click mimicking in Streamdeck, and I put in a link to a Reddit on that.
And Peter?
Yeah, following on to what Roscoe said, I mean, I've played with it using Keyboard Maestro to simulate the mouse clicks as an example. To do that, you don't want to do it too quickly, because the level of indirection by going through Keyboard Maestro, it's not an instantaneous, like just switching to a new profile by clicking on the profile in Loopback or something like that. There is, I don't care how fast the machine is, there will be some delay that you're not prepared for if you're trying to do something live.
All right, next question.
Douglas Carmichael, what would it take to produce the Office Hours 2.0 framework for deployment in K through 12 or university settings?
So
I would suggest that you think about this a little bit differently, Douglas. I think what this process is, this 2.0 process is not making a product, but making people. It's making people that know how to do a thing that's different from how other things are being done. And so what you're actually doing is giving the opportunity for many people in this community to learn how to make money in a different way. So that's how I would see it actually monetize, is not necessarily by building a packet that we sell, but by building a bunch of people that know how to make a thing happen, and then creating an economy that way. And of course, Alex may completely disagree with me, so I want to say that, but that's just my thought.
Alex?
I completely agree with Tlaloc. So anyway, the reason that we're constantly showing everyone how we're doing it, publishing to GitHub about here's what we figured out so far, is really the idea to exactly what Tlaloc said, is that we want everyone to be able to do it. So this is about generating a opportunity for our members. So the best way to move it forward is have more and more what we're working on. And I apologize. I had this huge concert on Thursday that took up a lot of time. Now I think I'm done for the rest of the year. So anyway, but I'm going to be putting out invites for people. The best thing for people to do is to help with the Mobley process, help with the Belfast project method, help with Office Hours 2.0, get involved with those things, all of them, because all of them are experimenting with something different. So they're all Tony's show is very AWS. The Belfast method is very it's taking control of a location. The new we haven't figured out the name of it yet, but the Garjar thing that we're gonna have there is taking over multiple locations at one time, and how do we abstract that? So all of this is a lab, and the best thing to do for everyone here is, when you can, jump into those labs and work on different parts. Take on this part today and another part tomorrow, and get yourself around it, because even if you're never going to do this all the time, you may decide I'm never going to be a TD to do this. Doing the TD part makes you a great producer, because some of the people in this group are producers. They're going to go out and sell this as a product. Now they're not going to, and that's fine with me, by the way. I don't want people to, people have asked me, like, is it okay if I use this idea? And I'm like, it's not mine. It's all of ours. And so the thing is that I want you to go out, and there's some of us that are more likely to want to go out and talk to people and sell ideas, and they've got ideas. And the key is, we need to make sure that they have a huge production staff on the other end that they can hire to do that thing. And I know it's a very crazy way to work, but the idea is that we want to give the people in our group who are more likely to go out and make a business out of it, the human capacity to get that done effectively, teams that they can trust, people are going to show up, technology that's going to work, all those things. And so every week we keep on getting better and better and better as this larger group. The best thing that you can do is get into it and take those parts, because there's some of us that don't want to talk to clients or aren't very good at it, and so that's fine. What you want to do is figure out what parts make sense for you. And then as we are all learning, and as we're doing all these things, we're all learning who we like to work with, and where we fit in, and all those other things. And that's going to make it much, much easier when Pixel, and I've seen this movie before. So when Google hit us in Pixel Core, when I didn't fail on the first project, that was pretty much all. Google was like, well, they seem to know what they're doing. And they just, I have 3 years. I can barely remember. I only remember through photos in my photos files. Like, I don't remember being there, but I have photos. So I know that I had to have been there. And so all of that was because I had spent 5 or 6 years training people all over the world. And I was able to like Google was kind of amazed that I was able to just drop people all over the world. Like, oh, I got a person in India, I know a person in Germany that can handle that. And we, you know, we had someone from like a Pixel Core member from Mexico, like managing the connection with the former president of Mexico, like 2 months into this. And so we, you know, because we had a trusted environment of all these people we had known over years. And so there's a huge opportunity to what we're doing here, and you just want to suck up as much as you can. Don't overextend yourself and feel, you know, run yourself into the ground, but take on as many of these opportunities as you can, because we're really building something that I think is going to become really interesting over next year.
I have a question to follow up on that, actually. Just from the education side, like, I'm surprised that there aren't more students here, whether they should be like in the panel or in the audience. Like, I don't know who is in the audience, obviously, but like, I just wonder like why there aren't more production kids, you know, students taking advantage of
I will
this
admit
panel.
that we purposefully, there's a bunch of restrictions, you know, that I worry about, that, you know, that I, you know, so I'm a little bit hesitant to promote into a high school or into
I just
other
mean
things.
college.
Right. Yeah. But that's why I've been kind of specific about not pushing that down the path. But the, yeah, I think one of the things is they just don't know it exists. Two is, you know, they're kind of, I know that sounds crazy, but college students can get into a kind of an old, like, well, that's what I'm paying for college for. So they're going to take the classes and do the thing. And the idea of, I mean, you know, but that's, you know, and I'm just saying they could augment it with what we're doing here, but they get into a little bit of a mode of they're overwhelmed with school as it is. Doing more of it is not what they are up for doing. I mean, that's what we found with college. We found that college students are the hardest to work with. I mean, for me, over the last 20 years, college students have been the most difficult because they have a whole bunch of classes that they have to get done. They're very focused on exams and homework and and deliverables and everything else. And so anything about learning, and then they have, you know, their social life. So anything about learning that isn't going to give them a grade is something that's very hard to get them to engage with. That's, I mean, you know, or there's not they get very mechanical about that process, you know. And so that's been our experience, is that college students are not very good at being part of these things. Where we find the most use, when it comes to kids that don't go to college but that are into media can be very, very they jump in and do a lot of stuff because they just have time. And like we have one that well, he may be on somewhere down the path. So anyway, we'll leave it up. But he runs a big video thing now. But he started in Pixel Core just like, I love theater and I do this thing, and he jumped in and we put him to work, and now he works at a massive video production, runs parts of it. And so the thing is that but anyway, that's what we find. And I think that the reason we don't see them on the panel is I think the panel is really people who have been doing this for a while that feel like they want to talk, you know, say something back. If you're a year into it, this would be a pretty daunting place to be, you know, because it just takes time and effort, and, you know, and Ben was the one exception because he had like 5 years experience at 18. So you know, and I think he squeezed 50 years into 5, you know, and so, but I think that's the challenge. I think that is why we don't see as many students. I do think that we're going to be more focused on that as we go into next year. There's a bunch of things that we're looking at related to education as we go into next year that we want to make this more available. And I think that we want to make it more available to, like, I think also for students, hanging out with a bunch of adults is not as cool as, so I think that we need to probably build something, an hour like this, that is specifically just for a different age group, you know, possibly run by a different age group. If Ben wasn't at MIT, we would, you know, like we'd probably drag him into it. So
I don't believe he is, actually.
Oh, is he? I thought he was. I thought someone said MIT. No, he's in.
Yeah, I was told that he was at MIT, but he's actually at Worcester Polytech.
That's what I thought. So I thought he was at Worcester Polytech, but then I guess when you were talking about interviewing him, you said MIT. So I thought, yeah. So either way,
that's what I was told. But I actually talked with him, so it's straight now.
Yeah. Okay.
Very
good.
And he's coming on soon.
Can't wait.
End of the month.
Can't wait.
Rasco?
College kids are focused on the end game when they get to be seniors, and the few that have showed up to here are intimidated. They don't have the cameras, they don't have the knowledge base, as Alex said. So yeah, but if we started a TikTok and YouTube, how to be a YouTube star channel, they'd be all over it.
That's true. All right, next question.
I'm still giggling. Thomas Bauer from Steinhagen, Germany has a question. He wants to know any thoughts on the focus on zoom demands for the Blackmagic Studio Camera 4K. I count 3 lenses with which this works. Really?
Roscoe?
Well, first of all, without a PTZ head, remote zoom is not the biggest seller in the marketplace. So therefore, there weren't a lot of lenses designed. A few of them have gone out of manufacture. You can find some of the Olympus ones, I believe, in the used market. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of demand.
Mark?
Yeah, and even for I misread the question, but even for the 6K, the least expensive servo lens I can find is $4,600. So it's just an expensive game to start to get into.
All right. Next question.
Panelist Pollock Miguel Lopez Waterman of Orlando, Florida, at least currently. Has anyone seen a company outside of Blackmagic Design that has cracked the camera control portion of the SDK? We can switch, we can control SuperSource with things like Mix Effect, Streamdeck, and AtemOSC, but none of these I've tapped into the CCU.
Tolek.
I wanted to jump in here because I didn't see a lot of hands go up, and so I wanted to make sure that I just sort of explained that it would be really great to be able to go in and change color and shade the camera from something other than the software control. And I've asked Adam Tao, and I've looked at AtemOSC, and it seems like that's sort of a shelf that people have not been able to pass. And so I wanted to say it here because I think there are a lot of smart minds that listen, and hopefully somebody can think of how to make this happen.
Alex?
Skarhoj, SKAARHOJ. They are the ones that have really dug deep into that process. Now, they make hardware, but a lot of it's all open source. So they literally, I don't know, I think now they might have gone a little away from the open source, but for a long time they had a lot of open source stuff that they put up of this is how we're doing it. Here is the Arduino build. Here's the, like they didn't care that they were like, you can do it yourself or you can buy our hardware. And everyone just bought their hardware because it was just easier and it worked. It was really cheap hardware at the very beginning. It was just cheaper than doing it. We had them build we would build custom controllers for studios where we would machine the outside with a big picture of this. When you want to show the computer, push the computer button. And then what we would do is put Arduino that was designed and built by Skarhoj to control the switcher. And they built camera shading units and so on and so forth and they still do. And all of that hardware has just gotten way better. And I keep meaning to bring them on. And so I just have to sort out. We'll bring them on, but they're the only ones that I know of that have done that. But it's all there. It's just a matter of getting to it.
All right, next question.
Mike Beardmore from Reading, UK. BBC Click feature a new law that EVs to make sound, but don't specify the sound. Each manufacturer is producing their own, and some include the 5 musical horn melody, and one includes the opening bar of Hard Day's Night. What would you choose?
Laura?
First of all, I think this is amazing. EVs are scary. I'm terrified of them. But I do think it needs to be standardized. And I don't know that you want anything that was a musical melody, because once we get to a place where most cars are EV, that is just going to be a sensory overload as they're coming down to stop. You're going to have this car doing this one, that car doing that one, that car doing that one. And it's just going to literally get to a place where it's the rhythms and the melodies and all that are just going to kind of like come together and just not be in sync with each other, and it's going to be bad. I really think they need to standardize it to 1 or maybe 2 like rhythms that are repetitive and consistent.
John?
I would like to hear a Bach fugue in D minor. That would be great.
And Jeffrey?
Ford has been working on this for many years because they had the question, what would happen if we took our classic Mustang and got rid of the sound of the classic Mustang? And so they've been working on ideas to bring the audio so that same sound comes there. So there's a lot of thought into it from the car companies, and they're very astute to understand what they need to do and what they shouldn't be doing when a vehicle comes running down the street. Now, with that said, there's always somebody that's going to try and mod it and make it sound like their own. So,
yeah, Stevie has the lawnmower, the Husqvarna lawnmower that's like the Roomba, and you can reprogram it so it makes a beeping noise if someone tries to pick it up and steal it, and it screams. And he changed it to an actual scream, and it just yells, "Put me down, put me down," and it's just kind of funny. So I can't imagine what the cars are going to do. Dennis?
I think the most important thing in the noise that the cars make is that it's got to have some white noise in it, because without that, it's hard to pinpoint where it's coming from. I think reversing noises have changed, certainly in the UK lately, to include white noise, and that means that it's much easier for you to locate where the vehicle is. So yeah, it should contain that so that you do have some idea where the vehicle's coming from.
Alex?
Two things. One, I didn't even think about that you could have the alarm system make a different noise than the beeping, because we've all learned to ignore it. Like when someone's car alarm goes off, you just kind of ignore it. I realized that if the car alarm sounded like someone screaming, it would definitely get more attention. Like it would just, suddenly, like, and I don't think it should be a person screaming. It should be an angry goat. One of those angry goats that screams. It's kind of like a person, but not like just like you just grab onto you break into the car and suddenly they're like the angry goat just screaming really loud.
Wilhelm,
it would
yeah.
be, yeah, like that. Anyway, the other thing I want Horf. If I'm gonna have to make a noise with my car, I think it should be hoofs. Like I think that would be great.
Coconuts.
Yeah, coconuts.
Peter?
Well, I'm kind of following on to what Alex was just saying, besides the hoof noise, but I was also thinking of, and it's the scariest sound I think I've ever heard in my life, was sitting on the bow end of a destroyer and hearing the collision alarm going off. I'm just wondering what a collision alarm coming out of a car would sound like. Yeah. Pointed outside, not the fact that you're closing in too close and you get that beeping sound, but the car sounding a collision alarm is about to hit something. Somebody might get out of the way then.
Yeah, I think to Laura's point, like we have to think about it as not just average users, but people who need something consistent. Like she mentioned in the chat that guide dogs need something to be trained to. So if they don't know what the sound is, how are they going to know to avoid it? Which is just another thought that's out there. All right, next question.
Our very own Tony Mobley from Newnan, Georgia asks a question. Michael Krasney was a great conversation this week. Will he be back when his new book comes out?
I sure hope so. I think he had a pretty good time. So I think he enjoyed hanging out with us. I was thinking, I have to admit, when he said he was like, still like, he misses doing it a little bit. I was like, what if we had Michael Krasney like host the Thursday sessions, like have him be the second hour. Like we're gonna hand it off to him and let him ask the questions. So we'll see how that works out. But I may try to bring him in for maybe every once in a while. If we have the right person, have him come out and take over my job and do that. That might be a lot of fun. Anyway.
Cool. Next question.
JJ McKenna from San Rafael, California asks, can John Pretto give a summary of the rocket launch team and progress?
I can do this. I can do this real quick. We've got a team of like 15 guys now that have kind of nominated themselves to be part of the team. That's really small here, but we've got Keenan and Chris. Keenan really is the project manager on this thing, and we've got what we believe is the ability to get bandwidth down here with PepLink from a van that's up in Las Vegas Boulevard, I-15, shot down to the dry lake, and then we're planning on having at least 6 or 7 cameras live fed into a switcher back up onto the net. It's coming together. Today's a build, so I'll be on the build cam here after office hours is completed. So it's coming together nicely.
What is the date on that again?
It's the weekend of the March 18th, 19th, 20.
When are we doing the test streams?
Keenan's going to be here a week prior.
Okay, great. I think we should try to figure out sometime in February that we can and try to get connectivity up, just to know what's there and what's possible.
Cool. All right, next question.
We're going to stay in space for this one from Douglas Carmichael. In an article about low latency satellite connectivity on Navy ships, it mentioned sailors attending family dinners and other personal events via Zoom. Would there be a market for smart spaces like restaurants with quality audio video?
Roscoe.
I just don't think the demand would be high enough. Most people have smartphones and stuff that they love sitting on their couches and talking to family members, and just somebody to record it. If whenever you get together with your family, just make sure you record those things, because when you lose people, those recordings will be precious.
Alex.
The FaceTime portal is designed for that. Like that's what that's what it was kind of built for, and it's a remarkable number of people use it for that. So they set that thing at the end of the table and they connect multiple homes together. So they'll have Thanksgiving and there'll be 6 people at each home, and then they're talking. They'll have two different homes doing it. I don't know if they've done more than that, but I do think that there is a possibility for doing more of that from home to home. I think it's an interesting idea that you could do it at a restaurant where you wanted to do something like that. But I've definitely seen people. I've been part of ones where my whole family on FaceTime, we've done that, where there's like 6 of us using iPads. So we didn't need to use anything specific as far as the space goes, but it was fun. It was fun.
All right, next question.
Kyle Hammond from Chicago, Illinois asked the question, I'm losing sync in 2 40-minute clips. Didn't realize they were shot at different frame rates. What's the fastest way to match a 2997 clip with a 30-frame clip?
Roscoe.
This is kind of a throwback question, because I used to have to do this manually, but nowadays most NLEs will compensate. If you just drop both those clips into a timeline with their accompanying audio tracks, they will be stretched and then render them out to come up with a proper sync for both clips.
Alex?
So I'm pretty old fashioned. I can form all my footage. If I'm doing production, I can form all my footage before I start. So I decide if it's going to be LT 422 HQ, sometimes 444, but not usually. And I mean, usually my standard is HQ because I do a lot of stuff that needs 10-bit. But either way, everything you hand me, H.264, ProRes, any frame rate, I decide what the frame rate's going to be. I set that in compressor as a hard limit. Like, this is my resolution, this is my frame rate, and then I drive it in and I just push everything through it. Now, the only place that I don't do that is raw files. So if I have raw files, if I shoot with a Blackmagic RAW, I'm going to edit this, and I am saying I'm going to edit this in Resolve. that's how this is going to work, because I don't want to take them out of their raw format. I want to have all that resolution and everything else that's there. I'll still decide what I'm going to conform everything else to, but I conform everything before I get going, because yes, all of these, NLEs say they can do it, but can they, and I can't tell you, I mean, literally up until the last couple of months, we had someone throw something in that the NLE played fine, and then it crashed all our renders. Like, we couldn't figure out where it was crashing. And it was some weird thing about the file that we dropped in that totally worked in the timeline. It totally played out, even rendered out previews. When we went to full quality render, crashed. And that's why, and all we had to do is dig through and find out. I mean, eventually we dug through, in fact, after the project, after we'd lost days of this export. And so you just want to, conforming is still a thing, even though everyone tells you don't have to do it.
Roscoe?
If you do shoot with a ATEM Mini Pro ISO, those ISO files you can edit in DaVinci Resolve with the MP4s that the ISO generates, and then relink them. So that way you're not dealing with all the raw footage. It's just a way to not have to deal with all the data in one fell swoop.
And I would say that's an exception, because it's built for that. It's a mission specific build. I'm talking more about bringing in various things.
Yeah.
Mitchell?
Yeah, I seem to run into that issue with MP4 files. It must have something to do with the long GOP iframes. But Avid kind of chokes on that. Premiere is okay. I can't speak for Resolve.
All right, next question. Last question for Saturday morning before we go into education.
Thank you, Emily. And this is from George Butters from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Has anyone built a studio framework using tetrahedrons?
Anyone?
I don't think any of us have. I think that a lot of we definitely build them with a lot of irregular surfaces, like irregular angles, but usually nothing that is anywhere geometric, because we find it easier just to make it like random. It really confuses the sound waves.
All right, so that wraps up the first hour. We're going to bring our educators in after we have our YouTube cut. So bye, YouTube. Good to see you guys. See you next week. Or at least I will. You can come back